The Steam Deck is an indie gaming powerhouse. So let me tell you about 5 indie games that you absolutely need to add to your wish list or your library. Number 5 on this list is a game called Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom. It's a car-based platformer that looks like it could have been made for the N64 or the PlayStation 1. The game's even got a filter that makes it look as though it's being played on a CRT monitor. When it comes to capturing that retro feel, they knew what they were doing. The game is created by a small indie studio called Those Awesome Guys, and the game itself is a platformer with a twist. Instead of jumping around as a character, you're a car that drives and also jumps. And I will admit, the mechanics took me a little bit to get used to, but once you figure it out, the game is really intuitive. Each level has its own theme, and the one that I played the most of has a pizza theme. And a lot of those missions involve me dropping off slices of pizza at pizzerias so that they could start their new jobs. Although I think they were just getting eaten. But on top of doing weird missions like that, you're also going to spend a lot of your time collecting green cogs throughout each level. And similar to other N64 and PlayStation platformers, this game is a collectathon. So you need to collect those cogs to advance the game's story, but you don't need all of the cogs. However, you're going to be compelled to collect them anyway. But the thing that makes Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom unique when compared to other platformers are the controls. Since you're controlling a taxi when you play this game, you accelerate and brake, and you can do so in the air as well. And there isn't a jump button. Instead, you have to do a dash into another dash, which then acts like a jump. It's a lot harder to explain than it is to actually learn and do for yourself, but the presentation and the aesthetic and the humor of this game makes it a joy to learn. There's lots of little references, lots of weirdness that I sort of love, and the entire look and feel of this game is not only nostalgic, but also extremely high energy. So if you're looking for a new spin on the classic 3D platformer formula, then you should absolutely give Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom a try. Moving on to number 4, we've got a game called Renaine. And at the time of this recording, we can only play the demo of Renaine, but I'm already very excited for what this game has to offer. Renaine is a 2D action-adventure platformer where you play as a knight doing good across the countryside. And although the main goal of the demo is to fight a dragon, I never actually found the dragon, but I did do a lot of quests along the way. And some of the lines that these characters come out with make this game that much more enjoyable. It's essentially a comedy action 2D side-scroller. And although Renaine utilizes pixel art, there's something very unique about the way this game looks. I'm not sure if it's the color palette or the pixel density or the way things just look. Renaine definitely stands on its own. The platforming is very straightforward, but the combat has a little more going on. Sure, it's viable for you to swing your sword a little randomly at enemies, but the game does have a bit of a combo system. And that isn't to say that you're gonna have to become a master of the combo system in Renaine to succeed, but the boss fight featured in the demo wasn't a pushover either. So I imagine that the final version of Renaine is gonna present a bit of a challenge, but the controls are responsive and the characters have so much personality. The game looks gorgeous, but the game's soundtrack is really where it's at. I could not believe what I was hearing. I just loved the music so much in this game, and I was blown away when I heard somebody start to sing.
I feel the summer breeze that winds out from the sea, and I think cautiously it's gonna be a good day.
All of this is to say that Renaine is an enjoyable game just based on the demo. It looks good, it sounds good, it feels good to play, and the demo for this game is free to try, obviously, so give it a shot. That brings us to game number 3, which is called Jusant. Every mechanic of this game is based on climbing, whether it be using a rope, swinging from a rope, climbing from ledge to ledge, or just exploring small areas where you can walk around. This is an entire game about going up a mountain. But in spite of the dizzying heights at play in Jusant, this is actually a very relaxing game to play. From what I played, there was little to no dialogue, and everything I learned was about the environmental design of each place that I visited. This includes just looking at how a place is laid out, understanding what it might have been used for, as well as finding notes which told literal stories about what each place was like. So taking the atmospheric storytelling and the crafty climbing puzzles that you'll solve on the way up, things become very engaging as you play Jusant. But the most grappling part of Jusant was the game's control scheme. Rather than just holding up to climb up a mountain as you do in most 3D games that feature climbing, Jusant makes you utilize the triggers on your controller. So you essentially have to use the right trigger to move your right arm up and then grab something, and the left trigger to move your left arm up and then grab another thing. And even that little change of a different control scheme made the game more enjoyable for me because I was thinking in a different way about climbing up a mountain than I usually do in a video game. Very meditative, and very enjoyable because of it. However, game number 2 on this list might not be as meditative. Dismantle is a survival horror game that takes place during a zombie apocalypse. But don't worry, it's not like other zombie apocalypse games. In this case, the zombies are called ex-humans. Compared to other survival games, Dismantle takes a little bit more of a simplistic approach to progression. Doing anything in this game essentially gains you experience, and then you choose what to do next on your progression tree. You choose what things to learn, what skills to master, and what things to excel at as you grow in the game. There's the combat, there's the foraging, there's the farming, there's the fishing, there's the building. And in my experience with the game so far, the combat's really straightforward. You essentially hit enemies and then run away from them and then hit them again, so on and so forth until they're gone. But I actually enjoyed sneaking around ex-humans and not getting involved with as many as I could. It was just more fun for me to figure out how I can navigate each area without getting into a fight. Because at least in the early game, some of these monsters are best left alone. And resource gathering, which is an inevitable truth in survival games, is usually my least favorite thing to do in any video game. There's something about punching trees and punching rocks that I just don't enjoy. But Dismantle put exploration and resource gathering very close together, and that made it more bearable. I started to figure out where things were, and I knew how to load up on certain resources, which made crafting a lot more fun. And I think a majority of this fun comes from the fact that the game isn't too demanding when it comes to the resource requirements for upgrades. I'm sure that later in the game things get more and more expensive, but at least while you're getting started in the first few levels, things are not that bad. Not to mention there's an entire co-op experience in Dismantle that I did not have the chance to try. And survival games are nothing if they're not fun with your friends, and Dismantle seems like a game that would be a great time with some buddies. So if you've never played a survival game before, I think Dismantle is actually a solid first game. It balances progression with making things actually really digestible, and that's hard to find in most survival games. And that brings us to the first game on our list, which is Bomb Rush Cyberfunk. With one look at this game, you can quickly realize that it's a love letter to Jet Set Radio from the Sega Dreamcast. And for good reason, that game is a classic. But Bomb Rush Cyberfunk isn't just a reimagining of Jet Set Radio, it's its own thing. The game focuses on dueling graffiti groups throughout the city, and the goal is for one graffiti group to become All City, which is to say that they are the ruling group. They've got the most rep, they've got the best skills, and they're the one that runs the city, essentially. So while playing as members of Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, which is the name of your graffiti group, you go through each part of the city, tag up the walls, get your name out there, get your rep up, and then you'll be challenged against the other team to a score face-off. Your skill with Bomb Rush Cyberfunk grows more as you understand the layout of each area and things you can bounce between to keep your combo score going. The more multipliers you keep running, the better off you are. On top of that, each area also has a lot of collectibles to be found, a lot of very hard to reach places to tag, things that will challenge your ability with your skateboard or your bike or your inline skates. It was nice to have options, but I think my favorite thing was being able to take off your skates. It was nice to be able to line up a jump on foot and then hop on my skateboard to try that jump. I know it's a small change, but having the ability to run around on foot made this game feel like more of a platformer than Jet Set Radio feels like. And it was subtle things like this that made me realize Bomb Rush Cyberfunk is really its own thing. In between battles with the other graffiti groups, you're going to find that the cops are also on your tail half the time, because the story of this game also focuses on the highly militarized police force that's running around town. There's clearly this big conspiracy going on, and that story actually makes this game a lot more fun to move through. Bomb Rush Cyberfunk isn't just a nostalgic dream come true, it's also a really solid arcade skating game. And that was just 5 of the games that I've been enjoying on my Steam Deck lately. And let's turn the comments on this video into an indie game recommendation list, because not only am I going to enjoy it, but anyone else who sees this video will as well. If you like the video, make sure you like the video. If you really like the video and you want to see more of this, then make sure you subscribe to this channel. Thank you very much for letting me talk your ear off about indie games, and I will see you in the next video.